There is a moment when energy becomes movement, a spark, a whisper, a deep inner knowing that says, go now. This is not ordinary action. This is not ordinary action. This is not busyness, pressure, or force. This is something sacred. Welcome to Beyond the Veil. This is inspired action, and it is the bridge between your inner world and the life you came here to live. Most people know about the law of attraction. You truly understand the law of inspired action. But without it, no manifestation can take form. Because the universe doesn't just respond to thoughts, it responds to motion. And not just any motion. Aligned, intuitive, soul-directed action. Let's begin where all transformation begins, with energy. Everything in the universe begins as vibration. Your thoughts, your desires, your intentions, they exist first in the unseen. But energy alone is not enough. If you don't bring the formless into form, you become a dreamer who never arrives. A soul with infinite vision, but no tangible change. The law of inspired action says this. The universe will meet you halfway when you begin to move in the direction of your alignment. It's not about hustle. It is not about effort. It is about listening. And then acting from that place. When your soul nudges you, follow it. When you feel the pull to create, speak, reach out, and shout. Move. When something lights you up in a quiet, powerful way, honor it, because that is inspired action. Let's talk about the difference between forced action and inspired action. Forced action comes from fear. It says, if I don't do this, nothing will happen. It's rooted in doubt, urgency, anxiety. It feels heavy. It depletes your energy. Inspired action feels very different. It often arrives in stillness. It feels like a breeze through your intuition. It doesn't always make sense, but it resonates. It may feel like an impulse to message someone you haven't spoken to in years. An idea that hits you out of nowhere, a vision you can't unsee, a sudden motivation to start, build, or release something. You may not know why it matters, but your soul does. The law of inspired action is how the universe speaks to you. It plants seeds in your imagination. It sends nudges through your intuition. And when you listen, you become a co-creator. But here's the catch. You must act without needing the full picture. Most people wait for clarity. They say, once I'm certain, I'll move. But that's not how inspiration works. Clarity comes through action, not before it. Think of it like a GPS. It doesn't reveal the whole journey, only the next step. And once you take that step, the next one becomes visible. This is faith in motion. Now let's break down what inspired action looks like in real life. Imagine you're trying to manifest a new opportunity. You set intentions, you visualize, you align your energy. And then one day you feel drawn to check a certain website. Or you get the urge to start a conversation with someone random. Or you suddenly feel pulled to revisit an old project. That's your cue. That's the moment. Most people ignore it. They say, it's silly. It's not important. That's probably nothing. But the universe doesn't shout. It whispers. And the more you honor the whispers, the louder they become. That email you almost didn't send, that phone call you hesitated to make, that project you kept putting off, could be the very thing that opens the door. Inspired action is rarely convenient, but it is always aligned. It may ask you to get uncomfortable, to trust your instincts, to step into uncertainty. But when you do, it creates quantum momentum. You're no longer pushing life forward. You're moving with the current of divine timing. You align with what some call a flow state, where doors open, synchronicities appear, and time bends in your favor. Because when you're inspired, you're not moving alone. You're moving with source. Let's talk about resistance. One of the biggest blocks to inspired action is the belief that you're not ready. You wait for the perfect time, the perfect plan, the perfect level of confidence. But inspired action doesn't wait for perfection. It requires presence. The question isn't, am I ready? The question is, am I ready? The question is, am I willing? Are you willing to take one step without knowing the next 10? Are you willing to follow the feeling, even if you don't have the facts? Are you willing to move in faith, not fear? Because inspiration is a window, and if you ignore it long enough, it closes. But when you respond quickly, without delay, you activate miracles. Here's a truth most people never realize. You don't need more motivation. You need more trust. Inspired action doesn't come from pumping yourself up. It comes from tuning yourself in. It comes from meditation, from grounding, from journaling, from silence, from creating space for the divine to speak. And once you hear it, you act. That's the formula. Align, receive, act. That's the formula. Align, receive, act. Now let's explore how this law interacts with the rest of the universe. The law of attraction draws energy to you. The law of vibration determines your signal. The law of divine oneness reminds you that your action affects the whole. The law of correspondence reflects your inner world outward. And the law of inspired action is how you translate all of that into motion. In other words, without inspired action, spiritual knowledge stays dormant. You can visualize endlessly, journal daily, and meditate for hours. But if you don't act on what you're shown, nothing manifests. This is not about hustle. It's about harmony. Inspired action is sacred motion. It is when the soul moves through the body, when the invisible becomes visible, when the potential becomes reality. Let me give you a secret. The most powerful actions often feel simple. You may think, that can't be it. That's too easy. That's not big enough. But the universe moves through simplicity. It's often one email, one step, one decision. That shifts everything. Now, how do you cultivate inspired action in your life? 1. Create space for stillness. You can't hear divine direction if your mind is cluttered. Meditate, walk, breathe. Journal, listen. 2. Trust the first nudge. Don't second guess your intuition. Act while the energy is alive. 3. Let go of needing to know why. The most aligned actions often don't make sense until later. 4. Track your inspirations. Keep a journal of nudges, ideas, and feelings. You'll begin to see a pattern, a map from your higher self. 5. Honor your cycles. Not every season is for action. Rest, receive, reflect, and act when the time is right. Remember, you are not separate from your desires. What you feel called toward is calling you to what you're dreaming of you. And the bridge is action, but not any action. Inspired action. It doesn't require force. It requires faith. It doesn't chase. It aligns. It doesn't control. It flows. And it will carry you into timelines you can't yet imagine. Because when you act from inspiration, you step into divine choreography. You become the universe in motion. So ask yourself, what is one inspired action I've been ignoring? And what would happen if I took it today? You were never meant to wait forever. You were never meant to stay stuck. You were meant to move with love, with light, with intuition. This is how you become the vessel. This is how your dreams become reality. This is how you co-create with the universe. Not by force, by flow. And that, beloved soul, is the power of the law of inspired action. Subscribe for more ancient wisdom and hidden truths. This is Beyond the Veil. Until next time, stay aligned.